This lesson is on the distributive property. The objective is to simplify expressions by using the distributive property. So before we start, let's make sure we understand what the word simplify means. So if we think about a fraction, 2/4, if we were asked to simplify this, it means to rewrite it in a way that does not change its value, but in a more simplified manner. So in other words, if I divide 2 and 4 by a factor of 2, it becomes 1/2. So it's not changing the value. 1/2 is the same thing as 2/4. So 2/4 looks like this. So I broke the whole circle into 4 pieces, and that's what 2/4 looks like. Whereas 1/2, I cut it into 2, and I have 1. So they're the same value. They mean the same thing. It's just 1 and 2 is smaller than writing it with 2/4. So that's what simplify means. Don't change the value, just rewrite it in a simpler way. So before we start the distributive property here, let's take a look at this expression here. If we were going to solve this expression using the order of operations, the first step is parentheses. So we're going to start in the parentheses. 3 plus 4 is 7. And then a 2 next to a parenthesis like that and nothing in between separating it means times, multiply. So 2 times 7, there's no exponent, so we are multiplying right now. We get 14. Well, we can also use the distributive property here. So if I redo this problem now, and this time I use the distributive property, which says to take the number on the outside and multiply it to each number in the inside of the parentheses. So 2 times 3 is 6. And then 2 times 4 is positive 8. And then 6 plus 8 is 14. So as you can see, that we could also distribute first instead of working inside the parentheses first. So now let's try some algebraic expressions with variables and use the same concept. So if we have this expression, if we try to do what we did here, which was order of operations, we have to do parentheses first. But inside the parentheses, we can't do 3x minus 4 because we don't know what x is to subtract 4. They're not like terms. So we can't do the parentheses. So we could also, though, try it this way. We could take the number on the outside and multiply it to each term inside the parentheses. So this is negative 2 times positive 3, which is negative 6x. Then we're going to take the negative 2 and multiply it by, we look in front, this is a negative 4. And a negative times a negative is a positive 8. Then we can't go further. Here we were allowed to add these. It was just 6 plus 8. In this problem we can't add them because of the x. This is not negative 6. If x was 2, this would be negative 12. If x was 3, this would be negative 18. So we don't know what x is to add them. So let's see if this works. Let's check. So if I take a random number, I'm going to use a nice number like 2. So I'm going to let x equal 2. So if I take my original expression, and I'm going to take out the x and substitute in a 2 here. So now I can do the parentheses because there's no variable. So 3 times 2 is 6, minus 4 is 2. And then bring down the negative 2, and again there's nothing in between, so that means multiply, and we get negative 4. Now I'm going to repeat this, and this time I'm going to plug in 2 into my answer that I got here, because I'm saying this is the same thing as that. So if I plug in a 2 right here, I should get the same thing as over here if they are really equivalent in the same value. So let's check. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. These are different, so we're going to subtract. This one's bigger, so negative 4. We get the same value. This is proving that it does work to take the number outside of the parenthesis and multiply it to each term inside the parentheses. So let's do some practice. So we're going to take the number on the outside. We can't do the parentheses because we don't know what x is to add 10. So we're going to take the number on the outside and multiply to this term. So in front of the x, we could put a 1 here because 1 times x is just x. So there's like this imaginary 1 here. So 2 times 1 is 2x. And then 2 times 10 is positive 20. And we can't go any further because this has an x and this one doesn't. They are not like terms. We can't combine them. Okay, so we're going to take the number on the outside and multiply it to this term. So negative 3 times 2 is negative 6y. And then negative 3 times a negative 6 is positive 18. And then we can't go any further because that has a y and that does not have a y. They are not like terms. And feel free to pause this video at any point and try the example first and then push play and see if you got it right. So we're going to take the number on the outside and multiply it to the number on the inside. So negative 8 times 5 is negative 40y, and then negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. And again, we can't go any further. This one has a y this term, this one doesn't. They're not like terms. We can't combine them because we don't know what y is to multiply first. Okay, there can be as many numbers in the inside of the parenthesis that are being added and subtracted. And when there's a bunch of things in the parenthesis that are added or subtracted, that is when I could take the number outside and multiply it to each term inside the parenthesis. And a term, again, is separated by a plus or a minus sign. So we have negative 4 times 3 is negative 12a. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4b. Negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. And then we look here, we cannot go any further because this has an a, this has a b, and this does not have a variable. It's just a constant. They're not like terms. So that would be my final answer. Okay, now if we take a look at this next example, there is no number in front of the parenthesis, but remember a negative sign stands for the word opposite. So this is saying the opposite of 2x minus 3. Well, the opposite of 2x is negative 2x. And the opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. So that's one way to think about it. Or you could think about it, I know some instructors tell you to put this invisible 1 here, and you're doing negative 1 times 2 is negative 2x. Negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3. So this is two different ways to do this problem here. Okay, one last example, same thing, but we threw in a fraction here, but it works the same way. We're going to take negative 3/5 and multiply it by 10x. So negative 3/5 times 10. We don't need a common denominator. We can cross simplify here, divide out the 5. And then we have negative 3 times 2. A negative times a positive is a negative. 3 times 2 is 6x. Then we have negative 3/5 times negative 5. So a negative times a negative is a positive. And we can divide out a 5 here and here. So we have 3 times 1 is 3, and 1 times 1 is just 1, and 3 divided by 1 is just 3. So we get plus 3.